Welcome to Hypnotic Authenticity. My name is Chris. I'm a practical, grounded hypnotherapist. I'm based in Switzerland, and this is a space that I have created to foster a genuine sense of inner settling, a place to harmonize with yourself and bring about the improvements to your well-being that, I don't know, maybe perhaps you thought were literally impossible. So my episodes are an invitation to reconnect with all that is alive inside you, to examine the stories that you live your life by, and to maybe soften the edges of what it is that you believe yourself to be in order to create a bigger, broader, more expansive sense of your personal agency and your personal understanding. So I'm going to be talking about identity, about existence, about self-resonance, self-harmony, about authenticity. And that'll all be wrapped up with a sprinkling of hypnosis or guided meditation to help you settle, to help you align and return to yourself. So if you're ready, take a breath and let's begin. What I'm going to talk about today is something which is, well, absolutely essential personally, I think, in the path of, you want to call it self-discovery. It's the subject of becoming a person, which was originally coined by Carl Rogers, I believe, although he may have taken the subject from somebody else. He wrote a book called Becoming a Person in the very early 60s, and I would highly recommend that you take a look at that book. Now, originally, I was just going to transcribe the audio from the video that I made in the summer of 2023 because it's quite concise. But what I've thought about as I watched that video again and listened to what I said is that there's more to add. So what I'm going to do for the first, it's about 20 minutes or so, the video. So I'm going to provide you first of all with all of the audio from that. So that gives you a good explanation. And then I'll pick up again afterwards. So just to give you a little bit of context, that video that I made that you're going to listen to was originally taken it was on the border of Arizona and Utah. Probably the people in Utah would be most upset when I say that because it was in Utah, but very, very close to the border of Arizona, in a place called Big Water. And I had hiked for about 2 hours in the searing summer heat. And I had found a whole series of hoodoos, which are they kind of look like stone mushrooms, and they grow, but they can be very, very tall. The ones that I was with were 3, 4 times my height, some of them. Very impressive, but kind of eroded away by nature. And that had caught my imagination, let's say, into the permanence and the transience of the human condition. And that's where this subject of becoming a person came from. It wasn't originally planned. I just set out to walk, and thought I'd let spontaneous inspiration arrive, and that's what came out. So let me just shut up and give you the audio from that recording, and then I'll pick up again afterwards. All right. I'm going to talk about becoming a person. Now, this is a book that you can find by Carl Rogers. Becoming a person. That's what he called it anyway. We might call it becoming yourself. And this ties into absolutely everything that I stand for. Basically, what it is, this is getting out of your story, getting out of your ego. Someone asked me a little while ago, can you tell me how to get out of my ego? And I kind of laughed and said, is that all you want? Because, of course, we can't get out of our ego. Well, let me not say of course, but it's pretty tricky. But we can get a distance on our ego. And I think if you can get a perspective on the voice running inside your head, you can relativize it. You can
Stop thinking that it's you, okay? Like the feelings inside of us, the thoughts inside of us feel most real when we forget that they're thoughts. You know, we don't have a choice about these thoughts. Thoughts just come up. And then we think they're us. And maybe they are us. And then we label them, we give them significance. There's a part of our conscious mind that goes, yeah, that was me. We fit those thoughts to our expectations and we create our reality. And where did that all begin? Because we never chose to have those thoughts. They just bubbled up. Is that the subconscious, the unconscious, the non-conscious? Is that the vast supercomputer which is running all of you except the thinking bit? They're all metaphors, right? But the point, I think, with becoming a person, I hesitate to say it, but let's go on and say it, growing up. Owning your experience. Is recognizing that there are reasons why you think the way you think that are typically to do with the experiences that you had when you grew up. And so they teach you how to label your current experiences. They teach you what you need to worry about, what you need to digest from your past. And the stories based around those experiences define who you think you are. They define the elements of your personality, the hooks that you latch onto. And there are so many ways that you can go with becoming a person, but let's just go with that hook on reality. So we define ourselves based around our responses and our experiences to chance occurrences that have occurred in our past. We come to learn that we're good at problem solving, that we're bad in emergency situations, that we are quick thinking, that we are inventive, that we are creative, that we are determined, that we're scared, that we're bad with people, that we're unable to focus, that we're scared of snakes. We're scared of falling in rivers. Who knows, right? These stories that we come to define ourselves by, what's utterly essential about that is that they were chance occurrences. And because of those chance occurrences, we've ended up with a label of ourselves. What's going on, a la Carl Rogers, a la becoming a person, is being able to take a step back from that. And it all sounds a little bit Matrix-esque, okay? It all sounds a little bit like stepping behind the veil. But there's a reason why that film has become popular, I guess. So I'm not going to go far down that route, but there is an element about considering who is doing the thinking. Who am I? What am I? When am I? Where am I? Sometimes I go down the route of actually knocking off the I and the am. What? Where? Who? Circumstances like this make me feel as though I'm connected with everything. I'm connected with nature, and what a gift that is. So becoming a person is being able to, let's say, observe yourself from behind your mind. Just taking a step back, considering that the thoughts which are coming up, which you didn't really choose to have, are then being labeled by your conscious mind based upon the perspectives that you have grown up to learn are you. And that somebody else with a different set of perspectives, faced with the same circumstances, the same life challenges, the same current situation, let's say, as you, would come up with a different interpretation because of their different stories running in their head of what they think they are capable of and what they're not. So it's funny, becoming a person almost means not becoming a person. There is there's a curious, multifaceted nature to becoming a person. It's like allowing yourself to not be what you thought you were. Allowing yourself to be other stuff, even that you can't define that, even that you don't need to define that, even that you couldn't possibly define that. One way that you can do that is by considering your responses to current situations, whatever they may be. Following that feeling, whatever the feeling is, finding a quiet moment, closing your eyes, and following that feeling back. When was the first time I ever felt that feeling? Okay. And when I felt that feeling that first time, did it feel familiar? And if it did, then there's probably a time before that. And keep going back and back and back to the point where it feels like the first time you ever felt that feeling. And then consider yourself in that situation, what you learned from that situation. Revivify it, live through it as if it were now at that moment. And consider how that has built an element of your story, an element of today's reality, an element of what is your worldview of you, of the world, of other people, of life turning. And consider at that time that you were having those feelings long, long ago. Oh, it just occurred, that you didn't really have a choice in the matter. Things occurred. And then you labeled them accordingly. And it's a little bit like hitting the front pin down in a bowling alley. If you can find that first one and you knock that one down, you kind of go, all right, so that's where that came from. You can then look at many, many subsequent experiences that were seen through the light of that first experience and come to be labeled in the same way and come to compound your perception of who you are, who other people are, what the world is, and the interplay of everything. And you can see it for what it is, which is just a chance occurrence. And I think this is a critical part about becoming a person, okay? It is relativizing. It's getting out of your ego, even though you remain in your ego, even though you're still thinking about the things that you're thinking, even if you're the one behind the one thinking. Who is the observer on the one who was observing? And who was the observer on the one who was observing the observer thinking? They're kind of all us. So you kind of have to accept the idea of a lack of control over that, because we can't really drill to the end of that. There's always another behind. There's always something behind. You can find religion through this. You can find faith through this. So the end result then of becoming a person is that you kind of accept yourself. You come to own yourself. You come to own that what you consider to be you is a series of archetypal stories. You can read about that with Jung, that have come to give meaning to your perceptions. And they feel right to you, and maybe they are right. But what they definitely are is a set of chance occurrences. And what we know from the universe, from the world, from everything, is that everything is changing. Even these rocks, even though they feel so permanent, so historic, so everlasting, they're changing. Everything is changing. And so our perception of what we are and what we're capable of and what the others in the world are capable of and what we should and could be and what our higher purpose is and what our lower purpose is and what's right and what's wrong and what's good and what's bad. You can start to see these things from the position of the observer of the observer of the thinker. And that's freeing. It's freeing. So I think I'm going to leave it there, because that is sufficient of a conundrum for one morning. But the end result is a sort of a beautiful richness to life. You're no longer shoulding all over yourself. You're no longer labeling, well, not to the same extent. And you kind of give yourself a break and you give the rest of the world a break, because you start to see people from a different perspective. You start to see the universe from a different perspective. You stop trying to control everything and accept that there's so much going on around us. And when you stop trying to control yourself, when you start opening up to what is there, there's such a lot. There's such a lot. And the opportunities are everywhere. It's just a case of getting out of your story.
Okay, so that's what I talked about in the summer of 2023. What I didn't get onto, the reason why I wanted to add some extra, is the whole kind of so what side. What is the point of that? What's the benefit of understanding this? And what I've come to understand with the passage of time is that we are we're using the hooks of our experience to define our sense of reality. But the hooks of our experience are based upon the tangibles in life, the things with substance. We work on the basis of cause effect. I learn this because I observed that. There is a causality chain that our logical brain likes to hang on. But by paying attention to the substantial parts of our experience, we are ignoring the insubstantial parts. And the only reason that we notice the substantial parts is because of the gaps between. It's because of the rest, you know? So, what I'm saying is that we are only paying attention to certain elements of our experience based kind of upon our felt senses. The things that we can objectify, the things that we can label: cat, pencil, rock, okay? But the thing is, as you grow up, you become more attuned to the things that are less substantial. You know, when you're young, you don't really give a thought to the idea of air and breathing and oxygen. But as you start to understand the world, you start to see that things hang within a world of other things that we don't necessarily pay attention to. And what I'm saying is that the way that we come to define our place in the world, our stories, are based around those especially childhood definitions where we were more basic, where we were less nuanced, where we didn't understand the broad scheme of what is potent in the world. And somehow, as time goes by, we forget about the fact that those concepts were created when our mind was younger. It was just more basic. It was more black and white. And so the things that we define ourselves by, well, actually, they shouldn't today be as black and white in their causality as we've come to infer them to be. That in actual fact, a lot of what we're doing is sort of shortened rules of thumb. They are easier ways to think about a life which is multivariable, multi-concept, far more difficult to generalize than we should do. But these rules of thumb kind of get us to just kind of exist. Becoming a person, stepping behind that veil of what it is that you think you are, doesn't mean that you're not what you think you are. But what it means is that you've only been paying attention to certain elements of yourself, and that those elements were deduced by the direction in which you shone your torch. And that was based upon your understanding of prior events, which were themselves deductions of the way that you previously shone your torch. And that the whole story was concluded from chance occurrences where you chose to look in certain ways, always based on the prior experience, the prior definition. And so the further and further you go back, the more you understand yourself, where these core principles, these core values, these core structures that underpin your sense of reality came from. And they all feel right. And no one's saying that they're not, but that you are much more than that. And so to come full circle to why is that relevant? Well, because your brain is an amazing thing. Okay, your brain allows you to circumvent and to kind of drone out the noise and focus on the things which allow you to progress. Fantastic thing to hand off the knowledge that you've just come to understand to the subconscious part of your mind so that it runs on autopilot. That's a brilliant thing. It allows you to get a lot done without having to expend a lot of conscious mental energy upon it. But it's also simultaneously creating the prison within which you shape your sense of yourself. It's defining your sense of reality, and it is defining the limits on your capabilities. It's defining the shape by which you expect the world to respond. And therefore, it defines the things that you will actually attempt. It defines the way that you think inside your mind. It defines your sheer perception of existence. And so the delight in becoming a person is in shaking off some of that, of accepting that that feels right, that it feels like you, but that you are probably a lot more than that. And that limiting yourself by that structure, well, it's not very helpful. Okay. It can feel safe, it can feel secure, but it's imprisoning you inside your comfort zone effectively. It's keeping you, well, safe. And becoming more and more comfortable with the intangibles in life, in the stuff that you don't know, well, the more you do that, then curiously, the less comfortable it is to go back to your rigid way of thinking. So actually, the freer you become, you start to bathe in that sense of unknowing. There is a certain beauty in the unknowing. And this sort of transcendent way of considering your place in the world and what it is to be an individual and what it is to be part of a ever-changing universe and how to even define all of that. Well, there's a certain sense of peace in there. There is a certain beauty in the tranquility of mind which comes from that. There are so many paradoxes in there because it's almost as if the more you know, the less you know. The more you observe, the emptier your mind becomes. And there is a certain beautiful purity in that stillness, that actually the stillness and the silence and the emptiness inside your mind is massive. It has substance in the insubstance. In that quietness, when the conscious clatter has found humility and just gone away a little bit, that's where the richness of experience, for me at least, lies. It's awe-inspiring. It's so vast, it's so massive that it is poetically, beautifully transcendent. So suddenly, we are a one. All is encompassing. All is one. And somehow or other, even though I can't enunciate it, I can't put it into words, it feels like a completely different sense of commonality, communality, spirituality. The entire essence of understanding of what it is that you think you are and others are and the world is, well, has literally transcended. And in so doing, the hooks by which you previously defined all of that were comforting, that were safe, become limiting. And then you can start to wander around on the streets of a big city with a glow on your face. And people can look at you and wonder what on earth you're thinking because everybody else is in rush hour city. I think that's a crucial point, this idea of humility, of curiosity as to what it is that you do not know, of all the things that you think you're sure about that could potentially be correct, but that might not, or that might not be the entire story. And in so doing, you free yourself to explore the rest. And so your opportunity set becomes far, far greater. And the more you observe this, the broader that opportunity set becomes. And that's sort of like a virtuous circle. It just grows and grows and expands and expands. So the end result is you free yourself for true authenticity, for true peace of mind. It doesn't mean that you won't be you. It doesn't mean that you'll suddenly transcend all fears, all emotions, that your sense of will disappear. There is nothing about um, a transcendent life which means that you should sit in a corner in a Zen Buddhist stance and do nothing and think beautiful thoughts. Okay, that's not what we're talking about. That would be very, very frustrating because your heart would have a fire for I don't know, for contribution, for creation, for activity, for joy, for all these things. But by being humble, by being able to know what it is that you do not know, by me being able to speak all of this, but also know that I can be ridiculed for it, but also knowing that somebody else's perspective is going to be different because their life story, their chance occurrences are different, and that that's equally valid to mine. That suddenly there's no need to prove yourself right all the time. That we're all in this soup together is what I'm saying, and that we are mutually dependent as a result. Well, there is a massive, massive richness in that. There is a massive joy in that, and it gives you the ability to start making the steps towards what is important to you. What is a core reward to your sense of fulfillment, in the full knowledge that others might disagree, in the full knowledge that others might not understand, in the full knowledge that you might be incorrect, in the full knowledge, though, that that's all you can know in this moment with the knowledge that you have, with the perceptions that you have, with the experiences that you have had so far. And that the way to grow is by experiencing different. The way to contribute is by pushing beyond your individualistic kind of dualistic perspective of life and start to see it's almost like a higher purpose. Almost start to see your place within the big scheme of things and to contribute to that for the benefit of all, because in benefiting all, you benefit yourself as well. So the whole thing is one, whilst at the same time being multiple. It's an absolutely fascinating thing, and you know, we can talk about this, or I can talk about this until the cows come home. Ultimately, what I'm saying is everything that we think we are is a story, and we are so much more than that. And that we mark our own scorecard. We choose where we place our emphasis. We choose where we shine our torch. We choose where we place our attention. And with a sense of humility, a sense of curiosity, a sense of open-minded awareness of what it is that motivates towards and away, of being aware of your inner compass, you can take meaning from that. You can lean into it. You can understand what it is to feel the way you do in this moment in time based upon what it is to be you in this moment in time. So effectively to be present now. But because of that sense of humility, being able to course correct, being able to get out of your consistency of what you were yesterday. So hanging on to the useful things, receiving the feedback, and making progress. And so that's where the richness of existence comes from, because it's coming from that humility. It's coming from that lack of knowing the insubstantial that gives a basis to what we consider to be substantial. Okay, I think that's sufficiently existential for one. What are we on now? 36-minute recording. So thanks for listening. I hope that's useful. If it is, let me know. Yeah, you can also take a look at the video if you like, if you're curious about the hoodoos in Utah, and if there are other topics that you wanted me to discuss, let me know, and then we'll give it a go. All right, thanks for listening. Cheers. Bye. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If it resonates with you, then follow my podcast. I would also personally be really grateful if you might wish to leave a quick rating. It genuinely helps others to discover the podcast. If you personally would like more guided meditations, you want some deeper insights, you'll find all my links in the description. If you prefer a more visual boost, then you might want to check out my YouTube channel called Authentic Life Hypnosis. And if you're looking to do some deeper work that goes beyond one-way audio, then obviously you're very welcome to reach out. Equally, if you have any questions, I'm here to help. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.